Ever wondered why you keep giving more and more in a relationship just to keep the peace, even when you know it's draining you? That's not love, that's training. Welcome to Withdrawal Reinforcement, the silent manipulation that teaches you to buy back affection. If this message hits home, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop your city in the comments below. I want to know where you're watching from. 1. Emotional guilt anchoring. Every man who's ever been emotionally invested in a woman has felt it. The invisible pull between affection and obligation. It doesn't start with money. It starts with moments. The way she sighs when you forget something small. The way her tone softens when she says, "It's okay, I understand. I know you're busy." That's not just understanding, it's anchoring. She's teaching your subconscious that disappointment equals emotional debt. And the only way to clear that debt is through gestures, gifts, or effort that often translate into one thing: financial reassurance. See, the trick isn't in asking, it's in implying. Women who master emotional guilt don't have to demand. They plant subtle cues. They use emotional association as leverage. Every time you do something for her, buy dinner, surprise her with something nice, she reinforces it with warmth, affection, validation. Your brain connects providing with pleasure, so the next time she seems distant, your instinct isn't to talk, it's to fix. You fix it the same way you've been trained to, by giving. And she knows that, because female psychology operates on connection, not confrontation. Instead of direct pressure, she creates emotional imbalance. You'll notice it in the smallest ways. She remembers what you forgot, but not what you provided. She highlights the one time you didn't show up, ignoring the 10 times you did. That's how guilt gets installed, quietly, beneath the surface of your logic. Before you know it, generosity isn't a choice anymore. It's a reflex. This is how emotional guilt becomes a weapon disguised as tenderness. She doesn't have to threaten to leave. She just has to withdraw softness. Because she knows your masculine identity craves appreciation. When that appreciation disappears, you chase it with action, usually in the form of doing more, giving more, spending more. And she rewards it just enough to keep the loop alive. That loop is what I call emotional conditioning. It's not random, it's design. The dangerous part? It doesn't feel manipulative. It feels loving. That's the brilliance of this trick. It hides behind the mask of emotional closeness. You'll convince yourself you're helping, you're caring, you're supporting her dreams. You'll rationalize the expenses as investing in the relationship. What you don't see is that your emotional guilt has become her control switch. The moment she senses you pulling back, she presses it. Maybe with a story about feeling unappreciated, or a quiet tear followed by silence. The kind of silence that eats at your peace until you do something about it. Most men confuse this with emotional depth. They think she just feels deeply. No, she feels strategically. She understands the psychology of attachment. When a man feels guilty, he compensates. And compensation is the easiest way to guide behavior without confrontation. That's how she maintains power without appearing dominant. It's not about the money itself. It's about the emotional authority it gives her. The one where she gets to define what love looks like, and you follow her script. And it always starts subtly. She'll refuse something small, making you think she's humble. She'll say, "I don't need anything, I just miss spending time with you." That sentence does two things. It absolves her of greed while making you feel inadequate for not giving more. It's not the request that matters, it's the emotional charge behind it. Over time, your brain associates her happiness with your ability to provide. You stop seeing her gratitude as appreciation and start seeing her disappointment as personal failure. That's the real transaction, your peace traded for her validation. Men who fall into this trap often confuse generosity with loyalty. They think being the provider equals being valued, but what they're really doing is paying emotional rent for affection that's conditional. Emotional guilt anchoring keeps you financing her comfort, not because you want to, but because you fear what happens if you stop. That's not love. That's emotional economics disguised as romance. And once it's set in motion, it doesn't need maintenance, just repetition. Every apology you make with money strengthens the chain. Every sorry you replace with action deepens the anchor. This is why most men never notice it happening. It's not an attack. It's absorption. one small emotional transaction at a time, until generosity becomes an expectation, and guilt becomes your default emotional setting whenever she's unhappy. She doesn't need to manipulate you openly. Your own empathy does the work for her. That's emotional guilt anchoring in its purest form. A psychological contract written in invisible ink, signed with your intentions, and paid for with your effort. 2. The supportive girlfriend illusion. Every man dreams of that woman who believes in him. The one who listens when no one else does, who says the right words when your world feels heavy. That's where this trick begins, not with deception, but with admiration. She studies your drive, your vision, your hunger to become something greater. Then, she mirrors it. She adopts your language, your values, even your struggles. You think she's aligning with you, when in reality, she's aligning her comfort with your ambition. The supportive girlfriend illusion isn't built on lies, it's built on timing. She appears when your focus is strongest. When you're working late, she calls just to say she's proud of you. When you're chasing something difficult, she says, "I know you'll make it." Those words feel like fuel, and that's exactly the point. She creates emotional dependency through encouragement. You start to associate her presence with progress. You start believing that her faith is part of your success story. But beneath that admiration lies something quieter, a sense of ownership over your ambition. Slowly, she turns your goals into shared dreams. She phrases things in ways that sound like partnership. "We'll make it one day." "We deserve better." Those words reframe your effort. Suddenly, your hard work isn't just yours, it's ours. That ours is the psychological hook, because once your vision becomes shared, your rewards do too. And that's how financial boundaries begin to blur. You start buying things not just for yourself, but for the us she built in your mind. The new car isn't just for your convenience, it's to take her out in style. The better apartment isn't just for you, it's so she feels comfortable when she visits. The restaurant upgrade, the small luxury gifts, they're no longer indulgences, they're emotional investments in someone who believes in you. She doesn't even have to ask. She just smiles, and that's enough to make you want to provide. This illusion works because it feeds two of your deepest masculine instincts, purpose and protection. When a woman blends those two, she becomes irreplaceable in your mind. You start seeing her as the one who understands your grind, your loneliness, your struggle. And in return, you want to make her life easier, to show that her belief in you was worth it. That's where financial dependency begins, not through demand, but through devotion. Her support becomes a currency of its own. Every word of encouragement has an unspoken price tag. The emotional energy she gives you becomes justification for what you give back in material form. If she's been there for your lows, she expects to be rewarded during your highs. She'll never say it directly. She doesn't need to, because you've already connected your success to her presence. She's the emotional investor. You're the financial one. And when you start to notice the imbalance, she has the perfect defense, the illusion itself. She'll remind you of how supportive she's been, how much she believed when others didn't. You'll feel ungrateful even thinking about pulling back. That's the genius behind this trick. It hides behind loyalty. You don't question her intentions because she's never acted like a gold digger. She doesn't ask for money. She asks for recognition. But that recognition often comes with a bill. She uses affection as leverage, not punishment. When you achieve something, she's there, posting, praising, smiling. She becomes part of your brand. You feel proud, and that pride keeps the cycle alive. You keep rewarding her involvement even when her contribution is emotional theater dressed as devotion. The illusion works because it blends sincerity with strategy. She genuinely looks the part. She listens, she supports, she uplifts. But it's not about your success. It's about what your success can sustain for her. Men caught in this web don't see the drain at first. They see inspiration. They tell themselves, she's different, she's loyal. And maybe she is, but loyalty that costs you peace, progress, and power is still a transaction. The illusion of a supportive partner becomes the perfect cover for quiet dependence. Because when a woman learns to position her affection as fuel for your ambition, she never has to ask for anything again. You'll give it freely, believing she's earned it. And in your pursuit to keep her belief alive, you'll start financing not love but illusion. 3. Selective vulnerability. Vulnerability is one of the most powerful psychological tools in human connection. It creates closeness, empathy, and emotional trust. But when used strategically, it becomes a silent manipulator. Selective vulnerability isn't about honesty, it's about timing and control. She doesn't open up to bond, she opens up to bind. She chooses the perfect moments to reveal her pain, her past, her struggles, but always in a way that keeps you emotionally invested and ready to rescue. It starts subtly. She shares something that sounds raw, maybe about her childhood, her ex, or a personal failure. Her eyes soften, her voice lowers, and suddenly, your guard drops. You feel trusted. You feel chosen. You believe she's letting you into a place no one else has seen. But what she's really doing is programming your empathy to respond on command. Every story she tells is a carefully chosen emotional key that unlocks your protective instinct. You don't realize it yet, but from that point forward, she knows how to summon your attention whenever she needs it. Selective vulnerability is never random. It's targeted. Notice how she doesn't share everything, only the stories that build emotional leverage. She tells you about her financial struggles, but not about her spending habits. She tells you about her heartbreak, but not about her role in it. The goal isn't transparency, it's influence. By curating what you know, she shapes how you perceive her. You start seeing her as fragile, misunderstood, deserving of care. And that perception becomes her shield. When you start feeling responsible for someone's emotional well-being, logic fades. You stop analyzing and start protecting. That's the point where vulnerability turns into control. Because now, every time she feels neglected, she doesn't need to argue. She just needs to look hurt. That quiet sadness, that tear-filled silence, it doesn't require words. It activates your guilt reflex. You rush in to comfort her, often through gestures that cost you time, focus, and yes, money. The financial part doesn't come first. It comes naturally, as a byproduct of wanting to fix what you never broke. The brilliance of selective vulnerability lies in how it disguises manipulation as intimacy. She doesn't pressure you, she confides in you. And that confiding makes you lower your defenses faster than any demand ever could. You'll start volunteering to help, to provide, to make her life easier. You'll think it's your decision, but she already knows how your empathy works. She studies your responses, what words trigger your care, what moments make you soften. Each confession is a calculated move in emotional chess. Over time, this dynamic becomes a cycle. Vulnerability, rescue, reward, repeat. She opens up, you comfort. She praises you, you feel needed. That feeling of being needed is what keeps you hooked, because men aren't addicted to women, they're addicted to purpose. When a woman makes you feel like her peace depends on your presence, you'll do almost anything to maintain that illusion. And that anything often includes financing the lifestyle that keeps her comfortable enough to remain vulnerable. She knows that emotional exposure builds intimacy faster than logic. The more she appears broken, the more you feel like the cure. And when you believe you're her safe place, you'll defend her even when it costs you. That's why selective vulnerability works so effectively. It bypasses confrontation and dives straight into compassion. You'll find yourself explaining her behavior to others, making excuses for her inconsistencies, all because you believe she's been through a lot. The dangerous part is how she uses contrast. Some days, she's soft, emotional, needing comfort. Other days, she's strong, independent, almost distant. That emotional oscillation keeps you chasing equilibrium. You never know which version of her you'll get, so you stay attentive, alert, ready to help. That unpredictability isn't confusion, it's conditioning. By alternating between openness and withdrawal, she keeps your emotional investment alive. In truth, selective vulnerability isn't about weakness, it's about power. It's how she maintains emotional control while appearing emotionally open. It's how she turns pain into persuasion and stories into strategy. You think you're connecting with her heart, but you're really connecting with her performance. And every time you respond with sympathy or support, you reinforce the behavior. You become part of the pattern, funding not just her comfort, but her control. 4. The lifestyle upgrade trap. It never starts with luxury. It starts with normal. She meets you where you are. fits comfortably into your rhythm, and makes you believe she's low maintenance. She laughs at simple dates, insists she doesn't need anything expensive, and says things like, "I just like being with you." That's how the illusion begins, because the lifestyle upgrade trap isn't about taking, it's about evolving slowly. It's a psychological drift, one purchase, one favor, one indulgence at a time, until your spending no longer feels like generosity, it feels like duty. The key to this trick is escalation through normalization. She doesn't jump from coffee shops to five-star dinners overnight. She raises the standard gradually, so you don't notice the shift. Maybe she suggests a new restaurant, just once. Then she compliments how well you treat her. That small moment of validation becomes reinforcement. You feel appreciated, and in that appreciation, you create a pattern. The next time you plan something, you subconsciously aim higher. Not because she asked, but because you want to feel that appreciation again. Over time, special occasions become weekly habits. The weekend getaway becomes routine. The gift that once symbolized affection becomes a quiet expectation. You start to believe this is just how love works, providing comfort, showing effort, making her happy. But what's really happening is psychological conditioning. She's associating your affection with material upgrades. You don't see the pattern until you try to step back. The first time you downgrade, skip the dinner, choose something simpler, she doesn't get angry, she gets disappointed. That's the real manipulation. Disappointment hurts more than demand because it makes you feel inadequate. She knows how to make you feel like you're falling short without saying a word. A sigh, a subtle tone change, a distant glance when the night doesn't meet her silent expectations. These micro-reactions train your subconscious to avoid that feeling. You start spending more not because she's asking, but because you're avoiding emotional discomfort. That's the invisible leash. Behavior shaped not by logic, but by the fear of losing approval. Eventually, her comfort zone becomes your obligation zone. Every new standard becomes the new baseline, and you find yourself maintaining a lifestyle that doesn't even reflect your reality anymore. It reflects hers. You work harder, stretch your finances, justify the costs by calling it love or care. But beneath the surface, what's really driving you is pressure disguised as affection. She doesn't need to demand anything, because you've internalized the idea that providing equals peace. This trap works so effectively because it's disguised as growth. You'll tell yourself you're just leveling up, becoming a better man, offering a better life. But it's not growth if it's one-sided. It's extraction. You're building comfort that only moves in one direction. She benefits from every upgrade, while you absorb every expense, financial, emotional, and mental. The more you give, the less gratitude you receive, because gratitude fades once expectation takes its place. The upgrade trap also feeds off comparison. She'll start referencing other couples or experiences, always subtly. My friend's boyfriend took her there. I saw this place online, it looks amazing. These aren't innocent comments, they're benchmarks. She's planting images of what she deserves, knowing that your competitive instinct will push you to deliver. Men don't like feeling like they're falling behind, especially in relationships. So you rise to meet an invisible standard that keeps moving further away. The longer this continues, the less you recognize the simplicity that once defined your connection. You start equating emotional closeness with material presentation. The more elaborate the plans, the more alive the relationship feels. That's how she keeps you investing, not just in her lifestyle, but in the illusion that your financial effort equals emotional depth. She's built an ecosystem where your wallet sustains her affection and your effort maintains her admiration. What makes this trap nearly impossible to detect is that it never feels forced. Every decision feels mutual. Every step feels earned. But behind that illusion is a quiet recalibration of value. You start giving more for less. The same gestures that once earned you gratitude now only maintain equilibrium. You're no longer earning affection. You're renting it, one upgraded moment at a time. And each time you try to slow down, she doesn't argue. She simply lets silence remind you how much you've changed, how much you've built, and how guilty you'd feel if you stopped. 5. Withdrawal reinforcement. Every behavior in a relationship is trained through reward or punishment, even when neither person realizes it. Withdrawal reinforcement is the most subtle yet powerful form of emotional conditioning. one that teaches you to provide, to fix, to fund, all in the name of keeping peace. It doesn't start with anger or argument. It starts with silence, with distance, with a sudden shift in warmth that leaves you wondering what went wrong. That uncertainty is the fuel that keeps this tactic alive. In the beginning, her affection feels unconditional. She's responsive, attentive, emotionally available. Every act of generosity from you, whether it's attention, time, or money, is met with approval and closeness. Your brain links her affection with your effort. It feels natural, even healthy. But once that association is strong enough, the dynamic shifts. She begins to pull away when you stop giving, whether financially or emotionally. Her affection becomes selective, her enthusiasm fades, her tone flattens. You notice the difference immediately because the contrast is deliberate. That's the power of withdrawal. It doesn't punish overtly, it trains quietly. Your instinct as a man is to solve problems. When something feels off, you take action. So when she withdraws, you reach for the tools you've used before: effort, apology, and often spending. You buy her something nice, plan something special, or simply overextend yourself to bring back her warmth. And when she returns to being sweet and affectionate again, it reinforces the cycle. You've just been conditioned to connect giving with peace. The next time she pulls away, your mind knows exactly what to do. Give again. That's behavioral psychology at its finest, disguised as relationship rhythm. This tactic is especially powerful because it preys on emotional contrast. Humans are wired to chase lost comfort. The moment she withdraws, you feel the void sharply. The texts become shorter, the laughter disappears, the physical closeness fades. You can't help but wonder if you did something wrong. That doubt turns into guilt, and guilt drives action. You try to make things right, but in her mind, things were never wrong, they were just unprofitable. By controlling access to her affection, she controls your behavior without ever raising her voice. Withdrawal reinforcement is not about emotional maturity, it's about control through inconsistency. The push and pull dynamic keeps your emotions on a leash. The highs feel euphoric because the lows are engineered to feel unbearable. You're no longer responding to love, you're responding to relief. The relief of getting her attention back, her softness, her validation. And because that relief feels like peace, you convince yourself you're fixing the relationship when you're really feeding the pattern. Over time, this conditioning bleeds into your self-worth. You start measuring your value by her moods. When she's happy, you feel competent. When she's distant, you feel inadequate. That's how she keeps control without confrontation. Your emotions become her currency. She spends your energy and resources through emotional cues, and you willingly comply because the alternative, her withdrawal, feels unbearable. It's not the loss of money that scares you, it's the loss of connection. You'll notice how this pattern intensifies after every withdrawal episode. The reconciliation phase feels powerful. She's warm again, grateful, maybe even affectionate in ways she wasn't before. That post-withdrawal sweetness acts as the reward, the dopamine spike that seals the conditioning. You feel like things are better than ever, not realizing that you've just been trained to repeat the same response next time she goes cold. Each cycle deepens the link between your generosity and her emotional approval. Eventually, it's not even about money anymore. It's about predictability. You start anticipating her withdrawal before it happens. You preemptively give, overcompensate, and sacrifice just to avoid that emotional vacuum. It's psychological exhaustion disguised as care. You become trapped in a system where you're working constantly to maintain stability that she destabilizes on purpose. Her silence becomes as effective as any demand, her distance more persuasive than any argument. The scariest part of withdrawal reinforcement is how normal it feels once it's established. You start telling yourself this is how relationships are, that every couple has ups and downs, that you're just learning how to love better. But what you're really learning is compliance. You've been rewired to seek her approval through contribution and to interpret her detachment as punishment. Every gesture of giving becomes less about desire and more about fear. Fear of losing her warmth, her attention, her affection. And because she always returns just when you've given enough, your mind never questions the pattern. It mistakes control for connection and conditioning for care.